This is River back for lesson 4 from A Course in Miracles, the workbook. Just to give you a little overview, I'm doing one lesson a day for the entire year, and I read the lesson from the workbook and then I practice it out loud. So lesson 4 is, these thoughts do not mean anything. They are like the things I see in this room, on this street, from this window, in this place. Unlike the preceding ones, these exercises do not begin with the idea for the day. In these practice periods, begin with noting the thoughts that are crossing your mind for about a minute. Then apply the idea to them. If you are already aware of unhappy thoughts, use them as subjects for the idea. Do not, however, select only the thoughts you think are, quote, bad. You will find, if you train yourself to look at your thoughts, that they represent such a mixture that, in a sense, none of them can be called good or bad. This is why they do not mean anything. In selecting the subjects for the application of today's idea, the usual specificity is required. Do not be afraid to use good thoughts as well as bad. None of them represents your real thoughts, which are being covered up by them. The good ones are but shadows of what lies beyond, and shadows make sight difficult. The bad ones are blocks to sight and make seeing impossible. You do not want either. This is a major exercise and will be repeated from time to time in somewhat different form. The aim here is to train you in the first steps toward the goal of separating the meaningless from the meaningful. It is a first attempt in the long-range purpose of learning to see the meaningless as outside you and the meaningful within. It is also the beginning of training your mind to recognize what is the same and what is different. In using your thoughts for application of the idea for today, identify each thought by the central figure or event it contains. For example, this thought about blank does not mean anything. It is like the things I see in this room, on this street, and so on. You can also use the idea for a particular thought that you recognize as harmful. This practice is useful, but is not a substitute for the more random procedures to be followed for the exercise. Do not, however, examine your mind for more than a minute or so. You are too inexperienced as yet to avoid a tendency to become pointlessly preoccupied. Further, since these exercises are the first of their kind, you may find the suspension of judgment in connection with thoughts particularly difficult. Do not repeat these exercises more than 3 or 4 times during the day. We will return to them later. So the beginning part, it says to note the thoughts that are crossing your mind for about a minute. So I'm going to close my eyes for about a minute, and I'm gonna notice the thoughts that are crossing my mind. I'm not gonna say them out loud. I'm gonna give you a chance just to quietly listen to your thoughts. Okay, it's been about a minute. So now think of some of the thoughts you are having, and I'm gonna say mine out loud. If this is distracting, of course, pause the video, but just to give an example. So this thought about all of the painting I want to do in the house does not mean anything. It is like the things I see in this place. It is like the grass. It is like the leaf. It is like the statue. It is like the bench. This thought about not being worthy, not being worthy of love does not mean anything. It is like the grass. It is like my backpack. It is like this book. This thought about one room that I painted looking good for my son does not mean anything. It is like the things I see outside in this place. It is like the leaf. It is like my hand. This thought about the groundhog that had rabies that could be outside and is a bit scary does not mean anything. It is like the tree. It is like the pretty flowers. It is like the tall grass. This thought about spending more than my budget for the month and not sticking to a budget does not mean anything. It is like the pine tree. It is like the really tall ash tree. Okay, so it says do not examine at the beginning of the exercise, don't examine your mind for more than a minute and then begin based on what you noticed was the main theme, like I did. Also, the book notes that you may find the suspension of judgment in connection with thoughts particularly difficult. I noticed when I said the groundhog with rabies was similar to the tree, I could feel my mind fighting with that and telling me that it wasn't, but then I could feel a little bit of peace, like letting go of the ground. Like, I don't know the truth about the groundhog, you know. I do find that this is a interesting early lesson, and I really enjoy examining thoughts, but I also am aware this is the beginning of the workbook and that it says you are too inexperienced as yet to avoid a tendency to become pointlessly preoccupied. So, and not to do the exercises more than 3 or 4 times. So I think this would be interesting to do a couple of times and notice any resistance towards saying the thoughts and then comparing it to something in the room or in outside or wherever I am, that the thought is just like this leaf. So that concludes lesson 4. These thoughts do not mean anything. They're like the things that I see in this place. These thoughts do not mean anything. they're like the things that I see in this place. Yeah, I find it really interesting to compare thoughts to objects. I think that's really fascinating. So, thank you for joining me for uh, lesson 4, and I look forward to continuing on this journey. I'm going to do my best to do one lesson a day. This is I've gone through the workbook a few times, but this will be the first time that I've stayed with one lesson a day for a year. So we'll see. Thank you so much. I'm so grateful that, people might find this worthy and helpful. Thank you. Take care.